All right, welcome back to another episode of the Lookout Podcast. I'm joined by the legendary Tom Butler. And Tom, you just hit me with quite a few dates of when you jumped and the time you spent over in Laos. Can you run through that, like the years you were a jumper and then when you went overseas? What was your first year as a jumper?
61, Missoula.
61 Missoula. And then where'd you go from there?
Alaska for here 2 years, and then Alaska 63, 4, and 5.
63, 4, and 5. Oh, gotcha. And then after that?
Went to Laos.
Laos in 66 then, or tail end of 65?
The fall of November 65.
Oh, gotcha.
And then by March, draft board kept sending me threatening letters, so I had to go back and went to the Army. I was the only one ever drafted out of the war. And they told me, oh, you don't need to worry about it. Well, anyway, I went back after they said, well, subject to so many $1,000 fine, subject to prisons and all that stuff. So I went back and spent 2 years in the Army, 13 months of it in Korea. And then when I got out in January 68, I hung around, rested up a couple of months, and then I went back to work. But total, I think 6 years and 7 months with Air America in Laos.
Oh, geez. So how you got into Air America, and maybe I'm getting ahead of your notes there, but was it because you're a smoke jumper? Is that how you ended up getting recruited by Air America?
Yes, it's interesting. I think I got the story right. I heard it in 1951, maybe, or at least 63. 51, I mean. The CIA sent 2 of their operatives to Missoula to get trained like a smoke jumper so that they could parachute into no telling where on their covert operations.
Yeah.
And they realized that smoke jumpers already knew what they were teaching those guys and had experience, which the CIA guys hadn't had yet.
Yeah.
And so they just started hiring smoke jumpers. And some of the early ones, I think like Lyle Brown, Ray Skank, and others, they were probably 7, 8 years or more ahead of me, older smoke jumpers, and they hired them to transport military supplies and parachute resistant fighters into Tibet, because at that time China was attacking Tibet, and they ultimately took over. But they'd train them here, and then smoke jumpers would, fly out of Tokli, Thailand. It's a Thai air base. CIA had an operation out of there, and they were the earliest smoke jumpers working for the CIA, and they would come back and jump in the summer, and the winter they'd work for the CIA doing stuff.
Oh, wow.
And they were the earliest ones, and then from there, if they needed somebody, they'd hire smoke jumpers. And when I was there in 65 and all, I'd say about 60% of the kickers, which I was, a load master, were smoke jumpers, and then maybe 40% were special forces. And we had about 3 that were Marines, 1 Air Force, but they all had some kind of experience similar to dropping cargo or moving cargo or things. But it was mostly smoke jumpers. We used to a little bit of adversity, and we kind of proud of what we did, and they asked us to do something. But we learned that the CIA we could trust, as opposed to the State Department. They were, as soon as I went over, 2 of my friends told me, he says, if you get in any trouble here, go to the British Embassy, don't go to the American Embassy. They'll turn you over to the people that's after you. And they said the State Department is terrible. And over the years, all the little things that happened, I could see they were just worms. They just,
Really?
And the CIA was the opposite, very caring. They thought projects out. They didn't just off the wall do something. If they had you do something, you knew that they had figured it out pretty well it's going to work.
Gotcha.
And so we trusted them. Ultimately, the whole war in Southeast Asia, I don't think they should have bothered with it because of the rules of engagement. In writing my book, I've interviewed a lot of people that had been in the war over there, in the military, and I asked them what's their feelings about the war, and almost every single one came up with they couldn't do this, couldn't do that. You had to get permission. If you saw some enemy, you couldn't necessarily shoot them. You had to get permission. So it was the rules of engagement that they had there, maybe they still have. We should never go to war. If they talk about bombing North Vietnam, they didn't saturate like Second World War. They really didn't try very hard in the war. Now the troops on the ground tried hard.
Yeah.
58,300 of them died, and at one time they had 628 or something thousand troops in South Vietnam. And that would be on the east side of the Annamount Mountains, which are in kind of northwest to southeast. That's North and South Vietnam. And on the west side was Laos, hill tribe people, mostly Lao and Thai. That's an ethnic group, the way the anthropologists describe them, identify them.
Yeah.
And then there was some, the next biggest group are the Camus, and I'm going to have to apologize if I don't pronounce their name right because I've had it told to me several different ways. And they were the second biggest group, like 11% of them were, of the Lao population were Camus, and they're originally like 3000 BC. Mon Khmer was a big group anthropologists have classified, and the biggest population out of it was Vietnamese. Second was the Camus, and they were, a different language group than the Thai Lao. There's two different, and so.
Man, I never realized there's 3 different languages, kind of that.
Oh, there's jillions of languages. Even you could see a Camus. And they looked pretty much like Vietnamese because their DNA was almost the same. I did a lot of DNA studies.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Thai and Lao were Sino-Tibetan, Vietnamese, Camus. They're Austro-Asian, Indonesians, and those kind of people was Austro-Asian.
Oh.
And those 3 groups have significantly different DNA. And so in Southeast Asia, we're dealing most with Austro-Asian, Vietnamese, Camus, and then also Thai Lao.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the group she was with. You just asked about going over there. They originally, when they started dropping cargo, there's 2 things involved: humanitarian aid, and that's what the CIA claimed they were doing. Of course they were.
Yeah.
Well, the United States Aid for International Development, USAID, was the ones that handled the humanitarian aid. We had contracts with them, hauled rice, maybe some lumber, tin, a lot of refugees, whatever they needed, move them, had to move from village to village if the communists came in. And then the other part was military supplies. And Vientiane was an international community, neutral supposedly, and CIA didn't want any military visibility there at all. And so we'd leave Vientiane, where we were stationed, and we'd go to Thailand, Udon, about 30 minutes flight across the Mekong River, which flowed right by Vientiane. Go down there and air base at Udon. We would load up military supplies. It could be just general ammo. It could be grenades, rockets, landmines, napalm. It could be anything they needed.
Yeah.
And we'd haul it up to like Long Chin most of the time. and then in a C-123 or C-130 aircraft, and then smaller aircraft like Caribou would pick up maybe 2,500, 3,000 pounds, and we'd fly all these little outpost places and drop a lot of cargo.
Man, quite the change from kicking chainsaws and food to wildland firefighters. Like
Yeah,
man.
but they like smoke jumpers. Most of us were not married. A few were, but they're all very dependable. And the special forces they're really on the ball. You have to admire them too. They're just as good.
Yeah. So then, because of like your specialty experience as a smoke jumper and the other smoke jumpers that were helping out, it probably made for a pretty easy, I guess, like good chemistry, I guess, between the special forces groups and the smoke jumpers, since it's like specialized training.
Yeah, we all got along. Of course, they had different training, but
Yeah.
a lot of them had spent time in Vietnam. I'd say most of them had. Other, I don't know, they, like what's going on in Asia, they had a very good idea, and they worked out good. They knew something about cargo and all. Originally, they called us kickers instead of loadmasters, because originally when they really started having smoke jumpers over there, they would pile up a pallet tied up and have it in the door, the parachute on it, and weigh several hundred pounds. Well, you'd sit down and push it out with your feet. So that was how they got the name kicker. And then pretty quick, they started getting rollers like you see on the back of a semi truck, and you can have bigger loads. You can have, all the way up through the plane, so just right there at the door.
Yeah.
And you can control more when you're kicking it out, because a lot of these places, when we hauled with the Caribou to drop a gun emplacement, at the top of a hill, they had big, deep trenches for the Hmong to be down in there, and only their head and part of their shoulders to be showing, so the bad guys didn't have a good shot at them, and they could shoot the bad guys that came up the hill. So that was their gun emplacements. Some of them, most of them, helicopter could come in and land. America had, I don't know, must have had 20 or so helicopters too. They worked out of Udorn. That's where they're stationed, but they did all the work in Laos. And then we would fly over these little gun emplacements and drop out whatever they needed. Maybe batteries for the radio, but definitely ammo mostly.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And
and probably all during the day. Did you guys do any nighttime cargo runs?
What's that?
Did you guys do any cargo runs at night, like night ops or anything?
Yeah, they had teams trained to be over in the east along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they had a little board or a paper on it that would have the different things they might see, like a truck or a small vehicle or a motorcycle or a bicycle on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they would somehow mark it on the chart, and then when American planes flew over, like we had a Vopar, just like a Twin Beats with a fancy, bigger engines on it and a nose gear and all. They flew out of Udorn. There was a photo plane Air America had, and they would come over and radio up what they saw. And so these teams needed supplies. And they were along the Ho Chi Minh Trail where most of the American jets were shot down along the trail. They ran from North Vietnam past the DMZ into Laos and down, because the Marines were up on the DMZ. They couldn't come straight down, so they had to come over into Laos and then south and then back into Vietnam. And so they needed supplies, and we'd go over there at night. And they had we were given a location, and they'd have a strobe light. and the team would get in an area where there was a hill on about 2 or 3 sides of them, so somebody at a distance couldn't see a light and couldn't identify them, and that it was strobe light. And we get in the area, and the pilot would say we're so many miles out or something, and so then they'd start the strobe light, and then we'd see them like over the left somewhere, say. Well, then they'd bank around and come over one pass. Didn't want 2 or 3 or somebody to know something there.
Yeah.
And we just flew over them and kept on going, same direction for quite a ways, and dropped cargo. That was what we call a night drop.
Oh.
And it's voluntary. Most people did it. Some people didn't. Some of them had some pretty bad experiences, and weather almost hit the hillsides and stuff, and a rainy season and dark. I did quite a few of them. Several people did quite a few of them. We got paid $50 a night drop, and we'd do that so many times, and then we'd be called into the security office of Air America at Vientiane, and the guy would have this little book out, and he'd say, well, Tom, you looks like you had 8 night drops, so $400. Is that right? I said, yes. He'd give you $400 in green dollars.
Yeah.
It was CIA didn't want people to know, and I didn't need to tell people I was making money either.
Yeah.
But that was a night drop.
Oh, gotcha.
And then
did you have anywhere to like secure your money? Like, did you have a little safe or something to keep it from leaving you?
well, it wasn't a whole lot. I'd stick it in your pocket, and you'd end up spending it somewhere.
Oh, on something.
Instead of going in and writing a check like the commissary.
Yeah.
Or Papa Chu was a guy that ran the Air America restaurant in Vientiane. And if you was going to go to the States, say, I need $2,000. You go to his house. Okay, just a second. He'd go in another room, come back, count you out $2,000 in $100 bills. And somebody else come along 5 minutes later, I want $3,000. He'd go in another room, come out with cash for them. So he had plenty of money.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to worry about security too much. He could get hire some of the Thais across the river to come over and take care of you.
Oh, nice.
You turn up missing, so nobody messed with him really.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was, I didn't have that much money on him. To get 8 night drops, it'd take a matter of months before I ever got that many.
Yeah.
But one night drop, the site was supposed to be on the east side of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, higher up in the mountains, like in Vietnam, the edge of Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah.
And we flew around, and I think the pilot stayed over the trail instead of going far enough. And they have all these guns, and they can't see us, but they could hear us. And they started shooting any aircraft at us, and it looked like basketballs or something like that coming up, like 6 or 8 in a row.
Whoa.
And then you'd make a few turns and hear another 6 or 8 here. And we dodged, but it wasn't too hard to miss them, actually. I was laying in the back on the floor with my head sticking out of the back ramp, and I would tell the pilot, I said, at 4 o'clock, something coming up. And start with, he said, your 4 o'clock or my 4 o'clock? I said, everything your.
Yeah.
Okay, and we had to do it real quick. And so then he'd make a left turn, and then we'd get away from him. And we kept doing that and dodging for about 30 minutes. And finally, some more of them must have got out of bed down there and got on their guns, and there was an aircraft coming up 2 or 3 different ways.
Oh.
And it got to the point where I said, we need to make a left here. And the co-pilot says, oh, no, I got some coming up here. It's too close. And I'm sitting there going to make an instant judgment on, we want what he sees to miss us and what I see. He sounded pretty urgent. Of course, he hadn't had the experience I had maybe, but understand it. But so I thought, well, mine's going to come close, but I think it's going to miss. I just told him instantly, I said, go ahead and do what, Ron wants, the co-pilot.
Yeah.
And at that point, nobody wants to rat out and be the one to chicken out.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to fight another war than you can lose a battle and fight another war. So I said, we've been here 30 minutes. I said, we're not finding anything. I don't think we're gonna. And the aircraft's getting pretty close now, and there's more of them. We're going to get our ass shot down if we don't get out of here.
Yeah.
And as soon as I said that, they were all sitting there waiting for some angel out in the air to tell them. And they said, yeah, let's go home. And so we left. Now, that was the only time I got shot at on the night drops. They were actually pretty safe, except in the rainy season. Sometimes a pilot will be in the clouds and think, well, there's a valley here, the mountains over there, so we're all right. Turns out if they run into mountains sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the Smokejumpers that lives here went with a lot of them with me. And he finally told him he didn't want to go anymore because he had a close call. But mine, I didn't really have any close calls, but that was it. And the Ho Chi Minh Trail, another night deal. I was told to fly out of Vientiane at 2 in the afternoon, got on a plane, went down to Udon, about 30 minutes down. And then this big, tall guy from Arkansas, actual CIA person, come out of this building that we used to see and didn't know what was in there, but we knew it must be something secret because nobody would go in there. And he came out and he told us, come on inside. So we went inside. Usually I thought they would forklift just put a pallet on, we'd close up and go. But he said, no, come on inside. So we went inside, sat around this table, and I noticed there were several helicopter crews in there already. And I didn't know what was going on. And he said, well, we want, the Air Force is wanting to know, get some verification of whether what they're seeing in their photos is really correct. They'd like for us to go over the trail and count vehicles to compare with what they did in their photos.
Oh.
And our vision might be more accurate. And so he says, we've got some night vision goggles. And he says, we're the only one in the world has them. We hired IT&T to make them $3,400.
Oh, man.
Now imagine you can go to Cabela's and buy them for $150 now or less. But $3,400. Says we had to get them repaired. It cost $900. He says, so don't come back without them. And the Air Force, the military, nobody in the world has them. We don't want them to fall out and some Vietnamese give them to the Russians and they start making them.
Yeah.
Just don't, and had a parachute string around their neck. Says, just don't come back without them. He says, I can get another U, but I can't get another pair of these. And so he was pretty emphatic about it. And then that was all right because CIA figured things out. And okay, I trust them. Yeah, it's going to be all right. But what started worrying me is they said, well, we got helicopters crews, and they're going to be stationed all along the trail. As far as their gas will last, then there'll be another helicopter waiting. And that gas runs out, to be another, and all the way down several hundred miles on the trail.
Oh.
And he said, in case you get shot down, we're going to be able to pick you up pretty quick. And then I got to thinking, if they're going to spend thousands of dollars one night for our safety, because they don't want to lose personnel.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing to them in Washington, I think. And so that's when the only time I really got worried about something was coming up. If they're concerned about me getting shot down and going that much expense, they must think there's some good chance we might.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, how'd I get into this?
Yeah, exactly.
But you go ahead and do it. And we made quite a few trips. And night vision goggles, you could, of course, campfires would light up, but you had to tell the difference. Yeah. And then I'd be looking out my top part, looking out the door, laying on the ground.
With the night vision?
Yeah, with the night vision goggles. I'd be laying on the floor of the airplane with my head and part of my shoulders out looking. And then when I saw something, I'd say one truck, or some kind of a small vehicle or whatever we saw. And then my partner with me, he had a clipboard and he had columns and he would check. And the CIA had some kind of a deal where the time that we saw something, they could relate it to the location. And so when we saw a truck, they knew at that location there was a truck. Somehow they did.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's interesting. We flew over one great big I don't know, warehouse or probably a maintenance place for the trucks coming down the trail from North Vietnam. And I told them I'd come back. I said, hey, there's a great big so-so. I was telling them that. Yeah. That didn't mean nothing to them. They already knew about it.
Oh.
I think they didn't bomb it because they knew the trucks had come in there, and then they could get the trucks before they got there and afterwards, so they knew where the trucks would be. They were pretty sharp.
Yeah.
And that was only night stuff we did because the airfields, except for Pak Se, Savannah, Long Prabang, Vientiane, none of the bigger cities, none of them had any lights.
Oh.
And there was
Makes it a little hard to land without the lights at night, you know?
well, and then there are marginal strips, some of these strips anyway.
Yeah.
One incident where they did land at night, General Fong Pao was a leader of, I better tell you about him first. Growing up, he was 10 years old, and the North Vietnamese already coming in, stealing their cows and, doing things. So they, Fong Pao joined in with the French army, 10 years old, and they saw some leadership, and as he grew up, well, then made him a sergeant and so forth. And then they sent him to a French military school at whatever age. And I heard that he left Laos. The Americans took him somewhere for American military training. I don't know where or when. But he was in charge of the 2nd military district in Laos, which is a big area where the North Vietnamese was more or less pouring in, and into the Lao and Khmer and the Hmong homeland. And he ended up, he was a 2-star general, and he was just the absolute boss. Very, very skilled, smart, to handle everything plus. And he's really there today. Of course, he died 7-8 years ago in California, but he's there, George Washington and Lincoln put together.
Oh, really?
He's the man. And
he lived his final days in California?
Well, when they all left in 1975, they came to Jerry Daniels brought a lot of them up here to Missoula, and some of them went over to Minnesota and Wisconsin, and a lot of them around Fresno where the farming is. And then as years go by, they're pretty much in Minnesota, 200,000-300,000, and a little slightly more in California. And then Wisconsin has quite a few.
Oh, wow.
And that's where most of them are today. And so he came over, like all of them. This is their 50th anniversary of getting away from the communists in Long Chen, where they all left.
Yeah.
And I just went to their reunion in Minneapolis in May. And there's a few of them I know up there. They have the special guerrilla units. It's what they call the people that was out in the jungle doing special stuff. And they, I talked to them, my nephew and I went up, and I got thinking about it later. I guess there's not very many people 50 years later around, and they didn't have the experiences that Air America kickers had and all, and pilots. And so I talked to them about, we had sites, the towns, these kind of hard to remember towns, and so like Long Chen, is the number we had placed for it was 20 alternate. So everybody gradually just said alternate, and you knew who I was talking about. And then all these different sites had names. Well, I was talking to people in Minnesota, and I remembered Nakong, Site 36, 32, Bun Luong, and all these different sites. I guess most people forgot them or didn't have an experience to be there enough.
Yeah.
And so I guess they appreciated it, and they could talk about somebody, some colonel that was in charge of Site 32, and I had an idea who he was. I talked to them, and they, I guess, were impressed or something, I guess. And so they gave me a pen, it says a Vong Pao pen that they made in recent years, and the back of it says "Friend of the Vong Pao." And it says, we don't give these to very many people. So I don't know. But I felt a little bit embarrassed up there. And then they gave me the book of Vong Pao. It's 2.5 inches thick.
Whoa.
I was talking to the guy walking out. I said, that thing cost over $100, way over $100. I'm sure it did. And they probably don't give them away. But I could talk to them about what they did. I knew what they did. And they see I appreciated it. Yeah. The Americans always had a great opinion of the Hmong.
Yeah.
And most of them don't realize the Camus were in with the Hmong army.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And probably some others. The Hmong men, M-I-E-N, was people that finally split in those two different groups about 3,000 years ago or more. And I speak almost the same language. Well, they were, Vong Pao worked with them up at Nam Yu, Lima Site, 18 alternate. And so there's different ethnic groups in Vong Pao's army. And he had disciplined the Hmong army. We'd haul them down to Thailand, and the special forces would train them, the new recruits. And then the ones that had been trained, we'd load them up and we'd haul them back up to Longshan probably. And then we did that, and that's how they were trained. Very good trained troops. And they could hold their own against the North Vietnamese. He had, in 1969, when things was going downhill, and the Hmong should have gone down to Thailand like at that year, they had the choice. And with probably the Americans' encouragement, no, state and fight and keep fighting, because that kept them, some of the Vietnamese, from going down to South Vietnam and fighting Americans. So it seemed to me like kind of a selfish decision. It's terrible that they didn't leave, because after the war, there's 40 or 50,000 of them were massacred. Anybody that had anything to do with the Vong Pao's army, the Pathet Lao, the communist Lao, would come in with the help of the Vietnamese, the Big Brother, and they would kill everybody, grandmas, babies, and everybody in between.
Terrible,
and
man.
It was terrible. And so he, in 1969, he had one successful offensive against the North Vietnamese called About Face 1. And then in 1969, when things were looking so bad and the North Vietnamese pouring in and pushing them back, they had the choice to leave, and they should have and didn't. He decided he was going to have another offensive, and he hired actually they ended up getting some military helicopters, which early in the war they wouldn't do it for any reason. But now they started getting some of those big helicopters, and America had some big helicopters too to haul troops. If you can picture Vietnam, and they'd come into Laos this far, well, halfway in between, Vong Pao set his troops in there, and the people, the ones that was the farthest from Vietnam, they had the Lao Hmong army at their back, the enemy, and the Hmong army in front of them, enemy. And I heard that he pretty well wiped out a whole division of Vietnamese. And so he controlled his homeland, where he'd come from, and where most of the Hmongs had come from. But, within 2 months, a division lost to North Vietnamese. They just had another one, and a bigger, maybe couple of them. And they kept on going, and they weren't, they slowed down but never stopped till 1972. They had the big fight at Skyline Ridge. That was the mountains right there by Long Chin. And if the Vietnamese had run over them there's no defenses between there and Vientiane, Laos, the capital. So that would have been the end of any kind of freedom-loving people. So at that time in 69, they brought people in, like after the offensive, I say, that was so successful, wiping out the Vietnamese. They brought in some longer guns. That 105 would shoot about 9 miles American, and 155 about 12. Well, the Russians had developed some that shoot 16 miles, and so they brought those in and gave them to the Vietnamese.
Oh no!
And we had, I think it was 5 different Thai bases. They had a battalion, and a few of them had 2 battalions there. There's like 22,000 Thais fighting for our side at one time, different times.
Yeah.
And they started shelling these, our guns could wipe them out and keep them at bay. But once the Russian big guns came in and the Vietnamese started using those, they were wiping out the Thais.
Oh.
And they'd helicopters to bring the bodies in, and some of them were laying up on the hillside for days before they could
Get pulled out.
They could get a helicopter in without getting shot in. They's bringing in to the Plain of Jars and northeast Laos, and then we would pick them up in an airplane and take them to Thailand. And they had body bags where the Hmong were just wrapped up in blankets usually, and had them in body bags. And so it's kind of yucky work.
Oh yeah.
You carry a body bag, and they didn't weigh as much stuff, but a Thai that weighed like 160 pounds, well, you carry a body bag with your hands held out, because you get them up close, the blood will drip out on your front of your pants.
Oh yeah.
And so you hold them out a little bit, and the other guys hold them out, and 80 pounds for you, 80 for them. It gets, and anyway, get a little blood on you here and there. But anyway, we put them on a pallet, scuba door pallet. That's the pallets forklifts picked up.
Oh.
And we'd run 2 straps in through there, put the body bags on, and then put 2 straps over it and tighten it up, and then the forklift would pick them up and put them on an airplane. We'd haul them to Thailand.
Yeah, yeah.
But to stack them, bodies is like stacking fish. They just don't stay where you put them. They slide.
No, not like blocks where blocks interconnect.
And
right?
so we put 4 bodies down, and you picture there's going to be 3 cracks in between the bodies. Well, then we put 3 more bodies there. There'd be 2 cracks in between those, and 4, 3, 2, 1, and then the forklift would pick them up. And the first time I did that, you see things you got to deal with, and the forklifts were going over that pierced steel plating, PSP, that he put down for airplanes out in the prairie and stuff, to taxi around on, and it was going over that. It was kind of rough, and that stuff was just jiggling. It was like a big hunk of Jello, and I thought, man, these are human beings.
Oh,
Oh man! So then you get used to it, and then Skyline Ridge was the next big battle in '72, and they had a lot of the CIA operatives there with their expertise and troops and whatever.
Yeah, hold on a second. Come on in, Carla. Oh, I'll get it for you. Yeah, James, can you get that?
What do you do?
Pull the handle in. The bigger one. Yeah, pull, and then push. There you go. Perfect. Come on in, Carla. Yeah, we're running.
Are y'all ready or not?
We got probably about 10 more minutes.
Okay,
Is that right?
just right next door.
Oh, thanks, Carla.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll grab you. Thank you. Yeah,
You want me to do something a little different?
No, well, I was thinking, because we kind of ran out of time, and that was my fault. If we could maybe do a part 2 this afternoon, would you guys be available for that?
Okay, I want to be Gail Morrison deal at scheduled at 3:30.
Oh, really?
So I don't know. Maybe I can get to see her quicker, or I just don't want to miss her sometime.
Yeah, don't miss her. We can maybe after that, maybe after her or something if you guys are around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be around.
Yes. Sorry about that. I kind of stacked things up, and man, I hate cutting you short on anything though. I hate cutting you short on your time, Tom. But I was hoping if it's all right with you doing that part 2.
Yeah.
You can do part 12.
Part 2, yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Don't you have any Smokejumper stories?
Well, I don't have Smokejumpers involved. I don't have any real Smokejumper stories. Just everybody was over there, not just me. They had experiences, and they could tell you things just like me. It'd be different
Yeah.
if you get a hold of somebody. Not too many around though.
No. Well, I appreciate the Vietnam stories because I had heard about it, for so long. since I started smoke jumping, like I had no idea really that smoke jumpers were involved in Vietnam until I became a smoke jumper, and then I started hearing more of the history. So I really appreciate the Vietnam stories. And then last thing, you were talking about just like the bodies. You said you had them stacked up and it was kind of moving like Jello. Where were they going?
Oh, they'd take them to Thailand, and then they would distribute them wherever they came from. Somebody identify them and take them down.
Oh.
But you hear people talk about war bothered them. It never bothered me. I don't think it bothered any of the smokers I know of. We knew what was getting into. We accepted it. But one thing did bother me is when we came into Long Chin, which several times a day, we'd run up the engines before we took off, and I'd look out and see if there's any smoke coming out or anything, make sure, and then we'd take off down the runway and go back to Thailand, pick up some more ammo. Well, I'd look out the window there on the troop door of the 123 at the engines, and right off to the right side, about 75 feet away, was a dilapidated fence, wire fence, and on the other side was a row of the bodies of the Hmong that the helicopters had brought in, and they were all laid in a row, and there might be 4 or 5, and there might be 20, and the Hmong women, you'd see them, they'd have their hands up in the air and look up, and then they'd look down and put their head down on the body. Then they'd look up again with both hands, and you could just sit there and imagine
the pain that she was feeling.
It always bothered me.
Yeah, that's horrible to see, Tom.
Just imagine what they were feeling. And coming back from Laos years later, I got into psychology, counseling, and all that stuff at college. And we took courses on stuff that had to do with funerals and the benefit. And after that, I could see the sense of having them grieve. It got them over it and got them back to their normal life. And I wish I knew that when I was looking at it.
Yeah.
But it was, finally I said, I'm not going to look anymore. And I'd look at the engines, and pretty soon you just couldn't help but look.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that ever bothered me. See injuries and stuff, it didn't bother me, but Skyline Ridge was a big battle. In 72, we brought in loads of more guns, a lot more ties from Thailand. They gathered up people from Savannakhet, was the only Laos and Pak-se, southern Laos, where they had a real effective army fighting force. They brought several thousand of them up, and it was, I think it lasted 8 days. There was just every effort they could make, and all of the operatives, CIA operatives were there, I'm sure. They didn't go with their name. Like Lyle Brown that jumped here, he trained me in 61 and worked in the CIA his whole life. His code name was Bear. Another guy named Parker, his name was a CIA guy, his name was Mule. There's Kayak, Caribou, Mr. Clean, and Mr. Clean had shaved head, real tall. He looked like a guy on the and all that. Well, they were all there. And so they, anyway, the Vietnamese finally, one point, some of the American officers who run things, they was talking and said, we need B-52s to saturate bomb on this side, and we need it right here. And the CIA and the Air Force says, well, that's too close. We can't control that much. I mean, we're liable to get you. And supposedly the American says, well, I'm afraid we're going to be toast if you don't do it. So just go ahead and do it and see how it comes out. And that whole regiment, it was very big, like half of a division or something. And you hear on the radio what the chatter, they had interpreters there all the time, what the Vietnamese is talking about, this unit and do this and that. And the B-52s, I think 3 of them come over and saturate bomb that. And there's no other word on that regiment after that.
Oh.
And so apparently they just completely wiped them out. And stuff like that helped them. And then that was 72. And then I know the war got a little more dangerous as time went on. And even in southern Laos, they started getting closer in, and we were getting shot at more, and we'd haul troops, and a bullet come through and shot some guy in the leg there by me, and he showed no pain, no emotion. They put gold on their teeth, symmetrical. How'd you do it? I'd speak a little loud to him, and he said, "Oh, like this." So you imagine he's sitting there filing down his teeth, somebody was, and putting gold caps on it. I don't know, pain, they could stand it.
Yeah.
But the war just went downhill from there. Ed Weisenbach was shot down on December 27th by the Chinese. 1971, I think. And another plane got shot down just before that by the Chinese in northwest of Incheon. Another pilot got shot down there in very southern. He was a caribou pilot. I can remember Bannerman, his name.
Yeah.
I was with him sometime. He did something that I just thought was dangerous, and I went and told the scheduling. I said, "Don't schedule with him anymore. I'm going to the house." And so I never had to fly with him again. And about 8 months later, had a Thai and a Lao kicker on there instead of American. The guy flew over the bad guys, even though the choppers right there choppers know where the bad guys are. Don't go over there. There's just too many bad guys. He just tooled around and went over and got his ass shot down.
Oh,
and that's
man.
about what I saw. And, there's, and in the war, we kept getting shorter trips. The bad guys coming in closer.
Yeah.
And they never came past Longchan, but there was very little done up north. It just finally, in October '73, they had the Air America crews moved to Thailand to get out of Laos because obviously the communists were going to take over. And I worked there till June and left, and communists come in, and the Hmong didn't leave Longchan until about 75.
Oh.
And some of them, they're all getting killed. A lot of them went out in the jungle and trickled on into Thailand. Had 9 different camps, refugee camps, and how'd they get across the Mekong River, a half mile wide? They'd make bamboo triangles, like maybe 3 or 4 inches in diameter, tie them together, and it's like an inner tube. You get in the middle of the inner tube. They just get in the middle of that like this and paddle across.
Oh, man.
Of course, some of them got caught and killed and going across. Some of them died, drowned for some reason. A lot of tragic stories. One gal named Kayla something, late homecomers something, and late homecomers is all one word. She's in Minnesota. A very good book about how they escaped. Somebody will read that.
Yeah.
And there's Air America book that 2 kickers wrote, Dan Gamlin, Special Forces, and John Kirkley from Hawaii, who'll be here today.
Oh, really? I'll have to say hi.
They wrote the book, Air America, something under there. It's a picture of a caribou airplane in the front. That's the book, a real nice book, hardbound, what Air America was, the CIA, what they did from start, how they contracted people that just had a leftover airplane in the Second World War and did contract work, and they hired them and then made a military force out of them, and then the CIA got everything going and made Air America. That book is, nobody will ever write anything describing Air America any better than that. That's 100%, very comprehensive. So that would be one somebody could read.
Yeah, what was that book again? Sorry?
Air America, and it might have something down below, but it has a picture of a caribou airplane.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
But it's Dan Gamlin and John Kirkley.
John Kirkley said it's going to be here today.
He will be here today.
Awesome.
He had airplane trouble schedules, so he didn't make it yesterday. But I talked to him. He's from Hawaii. He said he's definitely coming.
Oh, great.
And
And then Tom, before we let you go for part one, and we'll get together for part two, like we talked. What do you have a title for your book or anything yet, or is it just in the works for your book?
Oh, several of them.
Oh.
I've talked to different people about it. They want something flashy like Kick It.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if people are going to relate to that. You got to have something in there about hazardous missions or CIA. One chapter of my book is going to be hazardous missions and unexpected. I got to think of a word like things that dangers.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. It's kind of I don't know if it's really fitting, but it'll get people's interest. And but the book itself, I'm writing, is more historical. It's not have somebody have fun looking at all the weird things. I have one chapter in personnel. I have Tony Poe. I have the missionaries. Have some great stories, walking up and down the trails and all, and different things. Several chapters, about 12 chapters. I see on my computer where I was on this folder in 2010, and that's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I have stacks of this all around my office. My wife says it looks like Andy Rooney's office on TV, but I know where it is, and I need to start putting it together.
Yeah.
I've got to have some limit. I can have 700-800 pages, but it's historical. I like to have it pretty comprehensive. And then if in the market, if it don't sell, I don't care. It can go to the Air America Archives in Dallas or Texas Tech in Lubbock. They have two big deposits of them. So I just want to do it before I die, and I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah, well, it's important, Tom, and I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate you coming on, and like I said, we should do part two this afternoon if you get some time, and because I know we barely scratched your notes there. So,
well, I try to get some notes in order, the way I think that you'd want to present it. And of course, talking, you can switch around and put them whatever order you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I don't really need to get them in order. But be interesting to talk about the personnel and different missions went on and stuff.
Absolutely.
It's too bad. I hope you could find somebody else like John Kirkley. He's going to be here. If you get him, he does the whatever you call it, ranging in the Smokejumper magazine.
Yeah.
He's the one that gets that all in order and everything.
Oh,
always
really?
has. And he's one of the authors on the Air America book. If you could interview him some, Barry Reed here, he's not physical shape anymore. He couldn't come here. He could tell you a lot. I worked with him a lot. You know, the skyhook, we'd fly over and pick somebody up with a wire and
for folks who don't know, it's a person who's just sitting on the ground, kind of stationary, right? And the plane flies over with a long rope.
But a 10-foot square, you can pick them up, and the plane's flying a direction, and the person on the ground doesn't go that direction. They go straight up in the air. So you can actually pick them up in a 10-foot square, and we could tow them in, and we got several different types of training and trips to India. CIA was sneaking in aircraft for the Indians who always fought the Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
And they were neutral, so they didn't want anybody to know. We'd come over 300 feet off the ground and sneak in. And
Jeez.
it was very interesting.
Yeah.
But there's some other stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, this afternoon. That'd be great. Thanks again for coming on, Tom. I appreciate you, man.
Okay. And you can, next time, you can, got some ideas, something you want to hear, okay.
Yeah, no, everything you want to share, because like you said, it's important, and it's important to write your book because, like I said, most of it that's taught, at least in public schools that I learned, you get, kind of a oversight of what happened in Vietnam. You don't really get as detailed as it's just like you telling me. Like I said, I didn't know Smokejumpers were involved in Vietnam until I became a Smokejumper. So
well, a few of them in Vietnam, most all of them was Laos.
Yeah.
CIA around the war on the west side, the mountains, and the U.S. military on the east.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't in the CIA. I worked for them. I was like a contractor. I don't want people to think I'm claiming to be a CIA guy.
No, no, not at all. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that, Tom.
I just want to tell it the way it is.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in.